Alright, so here's my idea for a multi-attraction experience that would simulate a competitive battle between fictitious nations using theme park rides and attractions to simulate a war. All attractions are encompassed within an arena in which spectators are encouraged to watch and cheer on their favorite nation. The arena would have 4 entrance gates. Each gate would be themed to one of the fictitious nations participating in the war. The 4 nations in the war would be Lothia, Opar, Ald Bay, and Takan. In order to make the nations as easily distinguishable from each other as possible, each nation would mostly use only one type of material for their buildings and structures. For instance, Lothia would use mostly wood, Opar would use mostly beige stone, Ald Bay would use mostly red brick, and Takan would use mostly gray stone. Also, it's important to mention that the material the nation uses for its buildings would have no effect on the war itself. Outside of the arena would be buildings and tents, which would give the guests a taste of what the landscape and architecture for each nation is like. Within these mini villages would be markets, shops, and restaurants, some being quick service, some being sit down. And attached to the arena wall for each nation would be a balcony where these rulers of these nations would come out and greet the citizens. There would also be meet and greet locations for these rulers within the arena. The ruler of Lothia would be King Niemann, a relatively new ruler, having just come into power after his parents' untimely deaths at the hand of an Ald Bayan peasant. Only being in his 20s, Niemann is still relatively immature and isn't really ready to lead his nation. Niemann would inform guests through speeches and meet and greets that the people of Lothia have lost faith in him and the kingdom as a whole. His plan to regain the trust and loyalty of his people is to join and ultimately win the war. By declaring war in name of his dead parents who died to a man of Ald Bay, he believes that his people will fully embrace the battle. When Niemann mentions this, he is clearly timid and nervous of the battle to come. Siding with Lothia and King Niemann could allow guests to help the young leader regain the trust of his people and give him the confidence he needs to properly lead his nation. The ruler of Ald Bay is one King Heinrich. Heinrich is an old man somewhere in his mid-60s who is a big fan of upholding the traditions of the old. This would become evident to the guests as in the village outside of the arena, very little new age technology would be in use. There would be open fires used for cooking, there'd be no computers, we would actually have like traditional non-electric cash registers in this section, and lighting from torches and candles would be the only source of light being used in these buildings. The guests would quickly learn through King Heinrich's speeches and meet and greets why he despises technology so much. He would inform the guests that his wife actually died at the hand of technology. You see, a few years ago, she insisted on obtaining a smartphone as all the other queens from the other kingdoms had one. After many weeks of nagging, Heinrich would give in and purchase her a smartphone. He got her the most technologically advanced phone on the market at the time, that being the Samsung Note 7. One day, on her way back from dinner with her friends, her phone began to heat up in her pocket. When she pulled it out to see what the problem was, it exploded in her face. She died shortly after from bleeding out. King Heinrich has vowed since that day that he would eliminate the use of new technology in honor of his dead wife. So he has decided to go to war with the other nations of the realm, not only to eliminate the use of new technology in these societies, but also to punish the queens of the other nation for convincing his wife to want one of those death machines. Siding with Ald Bay and King Heinrich would mean helping an old man avenge his dead wife and ridding the realm of toxic technology. The ruler of Opar would be Queen Verona. Ascending to the throne after her father died of old age years ago, she's now one of the most experienced and respected leaders in the realm. Being in her 40s, she has come to realize that her people always come first, and she will always do what is in their best interest. At least that's what she'll tell you. Whenever she is making a speech or is in a meet and greet, she is always calm, collected, and is always choosing her words very carefully. It is clear that unlike other rulers in the realm, she doesn't wear her heart on her sleeve, which in turn makes her, in theory, a much stronger leader, but also kind of makes her come off as a bit of a politician. Through her speeches, she claims that this war they are fighting is a defensive one, and one she feels is necessary to protect her people. She would also mention that this is the first war Opar has fought in since being under her rule, and she intends for this to not only be their last, but the realm's last. Siding with Queen Verona and Opar could allow guests to bring peace to the realm, but could also be giving more power to a ruler who might not be really revealing her true intentions. The ruler of Takan and the final ruler of the realm would be King Khan. Now in his mid-50s, Khan is an experienced war veteran, fighting in and declaring many wars over his years as king. His reasoning for fighting in all these wars and destroying nations is to avenge his dead son. You see, many years ago, Khan's son went on a hiking expedition around the realm, visiting all the other nations. A few weeks later, Khan stepped outside of his castle to find his son's dead body delivered to his porch. Upon finding him, there was no note, no calling card, and no way to identify who did this. Furious at the world and unsure which nation was responsible for his son's demise, Khan has made it his mission to kill them all, knowing that one of them surely did it. Through his incredible and empowering speeches and his strong leadership skills, he has rallied his entire nation behind his cause. Now, Khan will mention in passing from time to time that he would have preferred to just nuke the realm, as it would take himself out in the process as well. But his wife, Queen Amala, has convinced him to not do so. It is clear that Amala represents the more sensible and kind half of Khan, as she convinces him to not watch the entire world burn, but instead bring the whole world together while eliminating all the evil. Siding with King Khan and Takan would help Khan avenge his son, eliminate what Khan and Amala perceive as evil from the realm, and unite the realm under one strong leader. Obviously, none of these leaders are perfect. All of them have some pretty major flaws, but each gives the guest a reason to support their cause. And ultimately, who you choose to support could change the realm forever. Once arriving at the nation you chose to support's arena entrance gate, guests would have the option of watching the battle or joining the war. Choosing to watch the battle would bring guests into a spectator part of the arena where they could view the battle from a safe position. Each nation would have a section for their fans and or citizens to sit. In each section on the second level of the arena would be a nation spirit store where guests could buy merchandise from that nation and show off their nation pride. On top of this, each nation would also have a few food and drink stands in the arena spectator sections. At Lothia's food and drink locations, they would sell hamburgers, hot dogs, and chicken wings as they have perfected the art of animal husbandry. Each nation would offer regular soft drinks, but each would also have at least one signature drink. Lothia's signature drink would be a vanilla and chocolate flavored milkshake. At Opar's food stand, they would sell submarine sandwiches, onion rings, and salads, as they are known for their spectacular agriculture. Their signature drink would be different flavors of V8 vegetable juice. Old Bay's food stands would sell different types of seafood, as they are leaders in aquaculture. They would also sell pizza made from their red brick ovens. Old Bay's signature drinks would be pina coladas and strawberry daiquiris. And finally, Takan's food stands would sell mostly bread and potato-based products, as they have cornered the wheat and potato markets in these lands. These products would include french fries, soft pretzels, tater tots, pies, donuts, and muffins. So yeah, they're pretty unhealthy, but don't let that distract you from the fact they have a very good and powerful army. Takan's signature drink would be wheat beer and whiskey. On top of this, each nation would also have a sit-down restaurant and the base level of the arena, which would sell more refined versions of the types of food they sell at their quick service stands in the spectator section of the arena. If guests opted to join the war, then they would be directed to the nation's military base. Here, guests would have a multitude of ways to help in the fight against the opposing nations. Participating in any of these options could help earn your nation points, which would be shown on the scoreboards in the arena. The nation with the most amount of points at the end of the day would win the war for that day. So here's how you earn points and help your nation win. You can join the front lines in airsoft battles. These battles would occur in 4 separate sections of the arena, and each section would have a battle between 2 nations. The restaurants at the base level for each nation would be able to view these matches their nation is participating in from windows within the restaurant. Each airsoft battle would be a team deathmatch style in which each team would put out 6 soldiers onto the battlefield, and the nations would fight until one nation's soldiers are completely eliminated. Each section would have different terrain for the battle, depending on which nations were fighting. At the end of the battle, the winning nation would earn 60 points, 10 points for each soldier eliminated. These battles would run continuously throughout the day. The next way to join the battle would become an operator for ground transportation or a tank. This would be simulated through bumper car battles. Each nation would have 2 types of bumper cars. One that would simulate an armored truck, having one driver in the front, and on an elevated seat behind the driver would be someone manning a turret. Outside of the airsoft arenas, all guns would work like laser tag guns do, using sensors to detect when a shot lands. The second type of bumper car would represent a tank, which would have two people in the front row, one driver and one person operating a mini turret, and one person in the back operating the tank cannon. The tank cannon would take much longer to turn and aim compared to the turrets and would have to reload between shots, whereas the turrets wouldn't need to reload. The big difference being, of course, that the tank cannon deals significantly more damage than the turrets would. Speaking of damage, each bumper car would have a set amount of damage they could take before automatically being taken back to the base. The armored trucks would have 100 hit points and the tanks would have 200 hit points. Mini turrets would deal 1 damage per hit, truck turrets would deal 3 damage per hit, and tank cannons would deal 30 damage per hit. And significant bumps with other vehicles would deal 15 damage to each vehicle. The battleground for these bumper car fights would take place in the center of the arena, with all 4 nations fighting against each other simultaneously. Each nation would have a load and unload station at the base of their military base. There would also be an invisible wall put into the programming of the bumper cars to prevent enemy bumper cars from getting into the other nation's load and unload stations. There would be no limit for how long a bumper car could stay out on the battlefield. The only thing that would make the bumper car automatically drive back to the base would be the bumper car running out of hit points. Nations would earn points through eliminating the other nation's bumper cars. Nations would earn 20 points for an armored truck elimination and 40 points for tank eliminations. If a nation managed to eliminate their own vehicle, which could only be done from bumping into it as friendly fire otherwise is turned off, they would lose 20 points for eliminating an army truck and 40 points for eliminating a tank. The next way guests could join the fight would be by participating in shooting galleries. There would be 2 types of shooting galleries guests could participate in. The first would put guests into the shoes of a sneaky sniper. Guests would travel up to the top level of their nation's military base, where they would enter the sniper's nest. Here, they would be equipped with a sniper, which would be tied down to the ledge of the window so nobody runs away with it or ruins the challenge of the shooting gallery. Similar to the guns on the bumper cars, the snipers would use sensors to detect when a shot lands. Snipers would have the option to affect the outcome of both the airsoft battles and the bumper car battles. They could affect the airsoft battles by shooting targets above the airsoft battlegrounds that would activate different things on the battlefield. These things could range from raising a new barrier up in the battlefield to activating a trap, such as locking the door to a building to prevent people from going in and coming out. Activating these things at the right times could help your nation win that airsoft battle. Since snipers are giving the airsoft divisions an advantage in their matches, snipers will receive no points for hitting these targets. Snipers could also affect the bumper car battles by directing joining in and shooting the enemy bumper cars from an elevated position. Each shot that a sniper lands on a bumper car would deal 5 damage. Also, it is worth mentioning that the snipers would need to reload. They wouldn't have to switch out the magazine, but they would have to put in a new bullet in the chamber before each shot. Of course, if a sniper were to land the killing blow on a bumper car, they would earn their respective points for their nation for eliminating it. The other type of shooting gallery would allow guests to send in mortar strikes. On each mortar launcher would be a touchscreen that would show the battleground for the bumper cars. Guests would pick a spot on the bumper car battlefield to send a mortar strike. It's important to note that the individual vehicles for each nation would not be visible on the touchscreen, so mortar launcher operators would need to make sure by looking at the battlefield that they're not going to strike their own nation. After selecting their location for the strike, a team member would supply them with a mortar to place in the launcher and send out the mortar strike. Once the mortar is placed in, the launcher would make a loud explosion sound and let out a bit of smoke. The mortar that was placed in the launcher wouldn't actually be launched off, however, and would instead just fall into a tube, where it would be dumped into a basement storage area. Once the mortar is launched, a large red target would appear on the battlefield. This target would be created by lights above the battlefield and would represent the area where the mortar would strike. As the mortar comes in closer, the target would shrink, and people in the bumper cars would hear a whistling from the strike coming in. Once the target disappears, an explosion sound would go off, and smoke would come out through tiny slits in the ground, indicating where the mortar strike hit. Any bumper cars, regardless of which nation they are a part of, would take 70 damage if caught in the blast. If the mortar strike eliminates any bumper cars, they would either earn or lose the respective points for that elimination for the nation. The final attraction of the complex would be 4 roller coasters, one for each nation. These coasters would run high above the arena and represent dogfights between the fighter jets of each nation. Guests would board the jets from the second level of their nation's base. The coaster vehicle would be themed to look like a fighter jet for a specific nation, sporting its nation flag and tiny wings jutting out of the side of the vehicle. The track for this ride would be colored blue to blend in with the sky, further giving off the illusion that these are planes. The supports would also be colored blue when close to the track, but would change to a color at the base depending on where the support structure landed in or around the arena. The ride would start with the launch outside of the base up into the sky. This would simulate the jet traveling down the runway and taking off. Guests sitting in the front and back rows would be equipped with turrets to shoot down enemy planes. Due to the difficulty of aiming while on a relatively intense coaster, guests would earn 2 points per hit on an enemy fighter, as opposed to earning points for eliminating the jet. The bulk of the ride would involve many close encounters with enemy fighters, giving guests opportunities to shoot down the other coasters, and each coaster would have a slightly different layout, with each having a few distinct inversions. These inversions could range from a vertical loop to a barrel roll to a corkscrew or even a zero-G roll. By having a variety in the layout of the tracks, guests would have more of an incentive to ride all 4 coasters as opposed to just the one for the nation they are supporting. At the end of the day, when the war is over, a winner will be proclaimed through the amount of points scored. The leader of the winning nation would come out to make a speech, and a fireworks show for that specific nation would cap off the night. Having this celebration at the end of the day would give guests more of a reason to stay and see who wins the war at the end of the day. And that is my idea for a multi-ride, multi-attraction experience themed to the idea of war. I know it's a long one, so I'm glad if you watched and stuck around and hopefully enjoyed it. I know there might be some controversy on whether or not this is the type of thing you should turn to a theme park ride, but I mean, they do it all the time with, video games and media, kind of making entertainment out of war, which is in itself kind of something not necessarily fun. But I feel like since we're dealing with fictitious nations and whatnot, this is a fine idea. And I hope you guys enjoy it. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.